G'day and welcome to the Hunting Connection podcast. My name is Zach Williams and I am your host. Here we'll connect you with hunters, fishers and outdoor enthusiasts from around the globe. This podcast will share hunting and fishing stories including past experiences and tackle the tough hunting stereotypes our community faces. We hope to be a positive influence to those outside the community while also having a laugh along the way. Hope you enjoy the podcast. G'day and welcome to another episode. Today I have Caleb from Send It Mate. How you doing, mate?
Man, I'm awesome. It's good to be here.
It's good to hear. It's been a journey to get you here. I've been wanting you here, but I wanted to split you guys up. So Ryan's going to be the last one, unfortunately.
Oh, look,
for him.
I was a bit jealous when you had Josh on first, if I'm honest.
I think his schedule just fit a bit better, being the single man with no kids, really.
Yeah, generally has a bit more free time on his hands, so good on him.
So let's get straight into it. Where you from, man?
I'm from Adelaide, man. Born and raised.
Yep.
So I grew up in Adelaide Hills in Basket Range, actually. So
Awesome, beautiful part of the country.
Great place to grow
My
up.
auntie lives up there, up at Marble Hill there, overlooking the city. So
Yeah. Look, I loved it growing up there. It was only a couple of acres I grew up on, but you know, an old stone cottage Mum and Dad renovated. It had a cellar underneath, so that was sort of a bit of a scary place for me to go visit. Like there's this stone cellar, and I swear I thought ghosts were down there, but no, it had a big natural spring up behind the house, and that actually fed into the mains water. So we bathed and flushed the toilet with spring water.
That's wicked.
And then Mum and Dad had that water tested, and like you've said, Marble Hill, Piccadilly, all those waters that you buy from the shops, it was as good as that stuff. So
there's actually quite a few deer moving out through that way now, across from the freeway. There's a few kicking around. My uncle and auntie see some every now and again, so I'm just waiting for their property to. I think they're on about 12 acres there, so but it's pretty hilly terrain, as you'd be aware.
Yeah,
pretty dense scrub.
I grew up on some pretty steep slopes.
Those ironbark trees there.
So yeah, we had goats, a couple of sheep, geese, chickens, the whole lot. So I sort of had that, I don't know, hobby farm sort of lifestyle growing up. I'd come home from school, go pick blackberries, take my machete out.
There's a lot of blackberries through there, that's for sure.
Just a few.
Did you drive past that farm with the ostriches there for a bit?
I can't say I remember that.
There's one there. There's been ostriches there for 20 odd years. And you look out in the paddock and they're just walking around, heads raised. You're like, holy shit, that's a big emu.
Fair enough. Well, we're just around the corner from what used to be Camelot Castle.
Yep.
I don't know what it's called now, something else, some function centre or hotel.
Yeah, no, I know the one.
Yeah, it's a good spot, man.
Yeah, good trout fishery right below it. If you...
Yes.
We'll get onto the fishing side of later for you.
Fair
anyway,
enough.
How old are you, man?
I'm 35.
35? Yep. Awesome. What do you do for work?
I work for my old man.
Yep.
We do property maintenance.
Awesome.
That's something I've gone back to after 13 years, well, more than that actually. So I used to work for him when I first finished school and in my school holidays growing up. And I decided after a year of working for him when I finished school, I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I did some work for my old man quite a bit when I finished school, and just too much clashing. Personalities too much alike.
I think that age when you're 19, you think you know everything. And
yeah.
So, I mean, I see it with my younger brother now because he works for my old man, and he's 21, 22. And, that's just that age you think you know everything. So, I did that and then decided I had enough of that and went to uni. And I'd always been sort of into design. So I went to uni, did industrial design, and then landed a job in Adelaide doing packaging design. So I did that for 5 years and then moved into sales. And so, I was in that industry for 13 years all up.
So packaging design, was that like boxes and stuff like that? You're designing
primarily.
boxes?
So boxes and stands, like displays, point of sale sort of stuff. So I've done corrugated cardboard and then also solid fibre. So solid fibre is sort of like if you buy a camera, that box that comes in. And there's a lot to a box.
I bet.
People don't realise, especially when you're in a manufacturing setting and it's high-speed machinery.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's still boring. It's still a box.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to it, put it that way.
So how did you get into hunting and fishing and the outdoors lifestyle?
I think, my old man was in the Scouts. So growing up, he was always keen to take us fishing and not hunting. He had a 22 up in Basket Range, so he just used to knock off some of the. I don't really think you're supposed to do it, but he used to knock off the red belly black snakes. Just because we were young kids and didn't want them around the
house. Yeah.
So the air rifle and the 22. But I was too young for that at that stage. But plenty of fishing growing up. And I guess Dad sort of instilled that, what his experiences growing up in us and being able to rough it and go camping and do all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, for me, I just loved being outdoors when I was a kid. I'd get home from school, as I mentioned before. Don't worry about the TV. I mean, we only got Channel 2.
Yeah, you don't. There's no phone signal in that part of the country. Just ask Josh.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'd get home from school, grab my machete, and then just go hack down melaleuca trees.
Yeah. Go
up to the spring, catch tadpoles. The dog would follow me around everywhere, and then I'd terrorise the geese because I was scared of them. And if anyone's ever had geese, they are vicious bastards, and if you don't like them, they know about it and they will attack you.
You ever scare them so much they dive underwater and they just look like the torpedo going straight underwater?
They're scary, man. And there was a pack leader. My mum named them all. So the particular pack leader was called Gertrude. And one day Gertrude rallied the troops and they chased me from about 50 metres away. They saw me open a gate and the whole lot of them came at me and, freaked the crap out of me.
Yeah, we had my uncle's geese. We got them given to us, Bill and Ben, the geese, and they were just the nastiest son of bitches. But they were soft and kind to my mum. Hated us. They hated us when they were my uncle's geese, let alone when they were our geese.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just used to fuck with them so much. They'd like dive underwater and just torpedoes. Like, geese aren't a small animal, man. And when they're cruising underwater, they're freaky looking.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's where I sort of, in that environment, developed an appreciation for the outdoors. And then it sort of carried on from there, from fishing to hunting. I didn't go until probably, I reckon the first time I actually went hunting, I was probably about 17, 18, to be honest. So that was much later on in life. And that was with Josh.
Yep.
We'd been mates since we were about 7. And that was always sort of his thing when we were growing up. And I never was around that.
Yep.
But he was always trying to get me to go. And then hit 17, 18, and it was like, all right, I want to get out and do this as well. And from the first time, I was just hooked, absolutely hooked.
That's the age where it starts clicking over.
Yes, you sort of start realising, and there's a bit more reason to it, I guess, than just, senseless killing of an animal. You're out there and you might be, culling for a purpose for a farmer or I guess, like you said, it clicked then. We realised, well, rabbits are a pest and they're actually causing damage, and it just clicked.
No, it is good, man. And man, I wish rabbit populations were like they were back then, but there's not many of them around. That's one of my favourite eating things.
Well, I've actually, if I can go on a bit of a rabbit hole, pardon the pun, I actually met a guy in my professional career, and he's actually quite a prominent guy in Adelaide. He's a millionaire.
I heard the story. It's a good one.
It is a good one. And he made his money in his early days rabbit trapping. That's how many there were. And he was catching 2,000 a night. And that story has stayed with me like for the few years that I've heard it.
Yeah, you said he's a pretty eccentric bloke.
He is. Very much so. I'd love to have him on our podcast. I'd absolutely love to have him on because I spent an afternoon with him. I only met him once.
Poolside.
Poolside, and he was in his underwear, which was quite strange in itself, but just the most interesting guy.
Yeah.
So
those old blokes, man, they know how to spin a good yarn.
They do.
Especially a bloke that's made his fortune out of trapping rabbits.
Exactly. He was making an absolute mozza.
What'd you say? He got in there pretty young, like 13, 14?
He was in his mid-teens, I reckon, and he was making something. I sort of worked it out to be about £30 a week, which back in the 50s was a lot of money. And then just was very, wise with his money then.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people were selling the skins. They were getting paid for shooting a pair of rabbits. And then there was a chicken shortage back then. So they were selling the rabbits to KFC and other chicken shops as chicken. And so they were making really good money.
Some of those stories about how people made their fortune back in the day, it's a bit different these days with all the safety laws and whatnot that we have. But Geez, that would have been good.
I know.
Something so simple and to make a
we were born a little bit too late.
We were.
So what's your main hunting setup at the moment?
Main hunting setup in terms of what are you talking about? Rifle or just
rifle,
gear?
gear, the whole run through, man.
So clothing wise, I run Hunter's Element.
Yep. Good gear.
And I don't have much of it because I don't tend to feel the cold and I get really hot in summer. So
yeah, same.
I've got the spur pants and the Eclipse top, which are fairly light, but they're sort of waterproof enough. If you get a bit, like if there's a bit of dew in the grass or whatever, it'll wick it away. And then for boots, I run the Under Armour Hover Dawns. And
how do you find the Under Armours? Because you've been running them about a year and a half ish now, I reckon.
Pretty much. And I've done quite a few Ks in them, and that was sort of the main reason I got them, was because you do 30 Ks in a day in a normal pair of boots, and my feet were pretty sore.
Yeah.
So I like the Under Armour running shoes, and they fit my feet pretty well. So I'm like, well, I know I can get something that is a good fit. Let's try them out. And the whole point behind them was being able to do some extended Ks, because they put that running shoe technology into a hunting boot.
Grip's pretty good on them?
That's probably the only thing I haven't really tested out too much, is something like really, really muddy.
Yeah.
The grip isn't great. Like, they don't have a real deep tread.
Yeah, I think they got a pretty thin sole from memory.
Oh, the sole's pretty...
Sole and tread.
The tread is light on. But if you're doing a lot of Ks, I guess you don't want that thick tread. So heavy mud and slippery slopes I haven't done so much of. They dig in all right.
Be interested to see how you go in the high country, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do many high country trips since it all started. So
true, but I mean, look, I've got the insulated ones, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I wouldn't get an insulated boot because your feet will get too hot," but surprisingly, they breathe.
Yeah,
and my feet get pretty hot and sweaty, and in those boots, they're fine.
Yeah, summer I'm dying in boots. Like as soon as I get my boots off, like socks are saturated.
Yeah.
In the middle of summer, and
so I mean, I've had them and done like 20, 30 Ks in 35 degree weather.
Yeah. And
still been comfortable, and not been dripping wet. So from that point of view, they've been really good, very comfortable, wear them all day, waterproof. So probably the only the downside, like you've said, is the tread.
That's the thing. There's so many boots on the market. It's hard to make you pick.
I guess you can't have one boot to cover everything, I guess. So they're definitely my...
I tend to do that. I find a good range medium pair. You know, I'm a budget hunter. I'm not like Josh goes spend.
Yeah, I'm sort of middle ground with my spending. So I do a lot of research beforehand, and then I'll go middle of the road. There's not too often I go absolute high end. Or
you don't want to be
budget.
a Josh, but you definitely don't want to be a Ryan when it comes to the spending.
Correct. I learned some of those things the hard ways, as we all do. You buy something cheap just to get in the game, and then you upgrade it because it breaks or whatever.
Exactly.
So there's some stuff that's been surprising along the way you've got away with, but in general, I always go sort of middle of the road,
mid-range,
And for me, that was a big outlay. For a boot,
but
you got to look after.
They're pretty pricey, especially because once your feet gone, there's you're pretty much screwed for the rest of the hunt. Especially if you're doing a backpack hunt, if you're halfway out and your feet give way, you're screwed. Yeah,
I mean, I did some slopes in a pair of work boots once. They were steel capped, and I was coming down a mountain. It was in the Flinders, and I was coming down this mountain. I was all right on the way up, but coming down, your feet slide forward.
Yeah.
And my toes were just banging into this steel cap.
I know.
And when I got home, I lost 2 nails off my toes, and then got an infection in one. I've got some pretty manky photos if you want to have a look.
You'll have to send them through and I'll put them on Insta. But
long story short, look after your feet.
Speaking of steel cap boots and the Flinders Ranges, we did a bow hunting trip to the Flinders about 6-7 years ago. And up to Beltana Station, packed all the cars, 4 o'clock in the morning, loaded them all up, jumped in, get halfway there, get a message from our mum, your boots are still in the driveway.
Oh, no.
I'm like, shit. I'm like, I think we were like coming through Clare. So this is Mount Torrens to Clare, driving through. I'm like, shit, it's just starting to get to that time where hardware stores are opening. I'm like, can we stop in hardware? Gone and grabbed them because I'm like, I need boots. Like,
Yeah.
I had a pair of thongs and that was all.
Yep.
I'm like, I need boots for hunting the Flinders. Or they had $50 pair of steel caps. And yeah, the week-long hunting in steel caps I was running up to the top of the hills to beat goats up there, and it just was horrible.
Oh, I can imagine, man. Yeah, definitely don't do that.
So what rifle are you running, man? What caliber?
So I've got a 308,
Yep.
a Tikka T3X,
Yep.
and I've got the camo stainless, which has served me pretty well. I just wanted something pretty hardy, I guess, that I could knock around the place.
Tickers are good.
Yeah, so that hasn't let me down so far, and I've just got a Vortex Diamondback scope on that.
Nice.
4 to 16 power. And
The Diamondback series is great, whether it's scopes and binoculars. They seem to do a pretty well glass for the price range.
exactly. And again, that comes down to my sort of middle of the road, affordable, not ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have these formulas about whatever you spend on the rifle, you're going to spend
double. Yeah.
double the scope. Well, no, it didn't quite work
Not
out.
everyone can afford to do that.
I spent less than half what the rifle cost on the scope, and honestly, it does the trick. And I think
the same.
The main thing is just find what works for you.
Yeah.
Find something that's fit for purpose, and you're good to go.
And in your budget, you don't want to stress yourself too much out.
No, you don't want to be making repayments on something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Diamondbacks I tend to steer people towards in the binoculars, like for a first pair, because they're around that 350, 400 range, depending where you get them from. Yep. So they're mid-range.
Yep. So that's exactly what I'm running for binos as well. And I was lucky enough that a mate of mine, who you know as well, Couchy, he bought a pair, and they somehow sent him 2.
Oh, Jesus.
So he still made a profit because I still paid him for them, but I didn't have to pay full price, which was nice.
Slippery sucker. Yeah, I went out bow fishing with Couchy the other day and met him for the first time. That was a good trip out. Not too many fish out, but yeah, he's a funny fucker. He definitely fits into the Send a Mate crew, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a tight ass, so watch that. But other than that, yeah, he's good.
He brought venison snags around, so it can't be that much of a tight ass.
Well, he still owes me some, and I helped him make him. So shout out to you, you bastard.
I probably got your share.
I think you did, man. I think you did. That's how we work sometimes.
I actually got some defrosting in the fridge right now for, I think, not tomorrow night. We got venison in the slow cooker, but got venison snags for the next night.
Oh, you beauty.
So what's in your hunting pack? What are you carrying around?
So I've just bought a new pack, actually.
Yeah.
I bought the Summit pack from Hunter's Element.
Yep.
I just wanted to try it. I saw a similar one someone has, the Spiker one.
Yeah.
I thought they're basically all the same features.
Yeah.
And I've been looking at
is that Hainsey what he had? He's got a very similar one.
Yeah. So I just went a size up, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think his was a sort of 40, 50 litre one. Yeah. Mine, I got the 85 litre.
Yep.
Which is good for a week sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I figure, look, if I don't need to go for a week, just don't put as much stuff in it. Like, I just want one to cover me for any sort of length. So I haven't tried that yet. That's that only came in a week or so ago. Before that, I was running an old sword. I think it's called a large field pack, which used to be Josh's that he used to have in the army.
Sword gear is good.
So, like, it's a very well made pack, and he lugged it in the army overseas for many years. But it puts way too much weight through your shoulders and not enough onto your hips.
And especially you kind of want a bag that fits your build, and your build compared to Josh's build is
quite different.
You're quite a lot larger.
Exactly. He's shaped like a Dorito chip, so he's got these big wide shoulders, which he's worked on over many years in the gym, and then just twig legs, and I'm sort of like broad all the way down.
And quite a bit taller.
Yeah.
Not hard.
He's a midget. He is a midget. So yeah, like I adjusted that as much as I could, but still I'd be lugging 40 kilos in that and just be sore as.
Yeah.
So that's why I've changed there. But inside the pack, obviously depending on where you're going, most situations I've been in, I've just taken a small, like even just a bino harness. Yeah. With some water and a knife and a few other things in there.
Do you go bottle or do you go hydration pack?
Bit of both. Yeah. So my bino harness that I've got the Bino Bro by the brand escapes me now.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the...
It'll come to me later probably. But either way, that's so on the back. There's a little you can unzip a section, and down drops a netting.
Yeah, I've got the same in my Badlands. I got a Badlands.
So I've put a hydration bladder in that before. I've put a water bottle in it, just a little Nalgene bottle in there, and I find it quite handy. Just it's even nice and cool on your back as well. So I'll do that if I'm not going too far away from base camp sort of thing. Backpack hunts. Then I've got the whole lot in there.
Yeah.
So I've got a Cedar Summit sleeping mat in there. That's something I probably wouldn't go without.
Is that one of the inflatable ones?
Yeah,
or
the self-inflating ones.
Self-inflating?
Even though it doesn't tend to self-inflate that well. They all say they're self-inflating. You're like, you open it up and you expect it to just be ready. But
what's the insulation like on it?
Pretty good. So
Pretty good.
I've had that out. No, I haven't had it in the high country yet.
Yeah.
That one's only a recent purchase, but I've had it in some cold winter nights.
Yeah.
Just over the border in Vic, and that was fine. It keeps the cold from coming up through the ground.
See, that's my problem. I got a cheap inflatable one, not self-inflating, but inflatable one from BCF when I was working there, and took it to New Zealand, and I was dying with the amount of cold air coming through.
Yeah, I love this thing. It was only, I think I got it on special. It was a touch over $100, maybe even $90 or something. But it's pretty compact, so that's always in the pack. Got a sleeping bag as well, which is, packs down pretty small with the compression straps. I can't remember what brand it is. I think it might even just be Caribbean, to be honest. But it's rated to -10.
Nice.
And I just used a few gift cards over Christmas one year to buy that, and that's kept me warm. And look, I run pretty hot when I sleep, so I don't need heaps of layers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I will boil in that in summer.
I'm normally the same, but then I went to New Zealand. I'm like, I'll be fine with a mattress without some insulation. And I think I was running about a -8 or 9 sleeping bag, and I just was cold the whole night.
Yeah, I mean that's the worst, being cold. So cold and wet. So I always have my hoochie in there as well, and some pegs, and a couple of Occy straps.
What type of hoochie? Just a tarp style?
Yeah, just a tarp style. Just camo pattern as well. So it's quite often we'll set up in the bush and you wouldn't even know we're there.
Yeah.
So always have that along with a couple of Occy straps and some pegs, just so you can set up in any configuration.
That's something I need to invest in, some Occy straps. For
and honestly, that was a tip I got off Josh as well. Most things, to be honest, I've learned from him.
He's very knowledgeable in that aspect.
With his army experience and hunting experience, he's quite knowledgeable. So, and
he
I'm
may
happy
be
to
full of shit with most things, but
when it comes down to it, when it comes to looking after a mate and making sure you can get through, he's actually a very good teacher as well.
He is.
As inarticulate as he can be, he's actually a very good teacher.
I'm loving the shots fired between the 2 episodes. So if you haven't listened to Josh's episode, go back and have a listen to the shots fired at Caleb. I'm sure it'll be the same.
That happens in our own podcast as well, man. He'll be fat shaming me every week.
Yeah, it's great. That's why I listen to it, just for the fat shaming. Nah.
Well, that's banter. Like we say, someone's not a mate unless you're giving them shit. So that's how we roll. What else have I got in there?
Do you have a stove? What?
Yeah, so I've got a jet boil.
Yep.
And I've got that little attachment you can get to have a pan on top.
Yep.
I didn't get the jet boil pan. I got actually a Cedar Summit one, which was a little bit bigger and worked out better for me.
Yeah, I got an aluminium Cedar Summit one that I picked up at BCF. It was in the clearance bin, down from like $50 down to like 15. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So that serves me really well. Just for, say you get something out in the field and you want to cook up a little fillet or something or whatever. Perfect.
Tenderloin straight in there.
Yep. So I always have some herbs and spices, a little bottle of, I got that from Tent World. There's a little pack you can get, and it's got a couple of little squeeze bottles. You fill them with oil, herbs and spices, salt, pepper, all that sort of gear. So I always have that in there.
Yeah, I got some old kid like baby shampoo bottles and just completely clean them, and they work a treat. I've got olive oil, salt, pepper, herbs, spices, and the whole kitchen.
Exactly. Got those. What else? I've always got a little fold-up shovel, and that's something I got really cheap.
Yeah.
Honestly, it cost me like $8 from Kmart. And
is that just like the triangle one? That's like 3 folds. So you got the spade, the handle, and the midsection. Yep.
Yep. It comes in a little pouch, and I've had that for probably 3 years. Dug plenty of poo holes with it. and honestly, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So if you need a little pit for your fire, or you need to go pop a squat in the bush, honestly, that thing's amazing. For
idea.
$8, I'm like, stuff spending $50.
And they got a little saw on one side, and you
Yep.
can hack stuff with it. And
100%, man. That's done me well. What else? Spare clothes,
yeah.
obviously.
How much clothes are you taking when you go on, say, like a backpack trip?
That's something I've refined over the years, and that's a lot of that's down to Josh just berating me about taking a pair of undies for each day. So
I'm the same. I like to be pretty cleanly when I go out.
I mean, he can
a fresh
talk.
pair of socks, a fresh pair of undies.
He can talk, because even in the snow, I remember when we went to the Vic High Country, it was snowing. It was -4 at night, and he's still stripping down to his jocks and washing himself with water to be clean. And yet I wasn't allowed to take a pair of fresh jocks for every day. But honestly, for that trip, so that's probably the most amount of clothing I've taken, just because it was cold. And I ran some Kmart long johns.
Nice.
And they kept me warm. And then had
polyester or cotton?
I actually don't know. I think they're a blend.
Yeah.
But they were relatively cheap. I think it cost me $20 for the pants and the top.
That's good.
In all honesty. And again, they're not going to be for everyone, because I generally don't feel the cold too bad. But they kept me warm at night. I was fine. So I just had them under my outer clothing.
Yeah.
The pants, top. I ran a fleece top. That's one thing I did get for that trip. And just the layering up, I think, is what kept me warm. I didn't need a big puffy jacket or anything like that. So honestly, I had, what's that? I had my thermals, I had my fleece top, and then on top of that, I had my soft shell jacket.
Yeah.
It's the one item I haven't passed to Ryan. So my original hunting gear, other than just the crap you wear, when I first decided to invest in some camo, I got some Pentagon gear.
Yeah.
From Military First over in the UK, and the tops were fitting great. Then I got this pair of pants, and my legs are not small. So they were just way too tight. So I had to get rid of them. So Ryan's got them, and somehow they fit his llama legs. The top fits him as well, which surprises me, because he's huge compared to me.
He's a big boy.
He is a big boy. And the soft shell jacket, I just love it, because it's got that. It's like a quilted fleece on the inside, and then soft, nice and quiet, heaps of pockets, lots of areas you can open up to dump heat out. It's got a hood as well, and that's all I had, 3 layers in the snow, and I was boiling sometimes.
That's good.
So it was perfect.
Yeah, sweet.
So that's probably the most amount of clothing I'll put in a pack.
Yeah. What's your top beginner tip for getting into hunting?
Try and find someone who knows what they're doing. I think is probably my tip, because hunting it's hard to get into if you don't know someone.
It is.
So I think that's my tip, is find someone who knows what they're talking about and get some advice off them.
So from my understanding, you just joined the ADA as well.
Yeah, correct.
You recommend doing something like that, finding your local hunting club, ADA?
I would, and I've only joined up since December last year.
Rich and Josh.
Yeah, all of us sort of joined about the same time, and I wasn't never going to be the first, but once I'd spoken to the other guys and they said, "Oh, look, it's worthwhile," then I did it. Because you hear a lot of stories.
Yeah, that's been a very big topic of this podcast, is like the stories of hunting groups and rifle ranges and just how old school it can be.
Yeah, so I think that's something that my perception had to change on, and I generally like to experience something for myself and work it out myself anyway. So once those guys who I trust, we're like, well, it's a good thing, you should do it. And I can only speak of the Southeast branch in South Australia. That's my only experience. I can't speak for every branch, but so far it's been pretty good. Yeah,
well, after Rich, Hainsey, Josh, and now yourself has spoken about it, a couple of the listeners have actually reached out, and they've gone out to one of the ADA nights and joined up, and so it's good to see. Yeah, 100%. And look, it one thing I will say, it's probably a bit daunting if you don't know someone. Yeah. That's certainly my experience, in that I joined up,
And I joined up over Christmas, so I sort of didn't expect like a heap of emails and communication. And then the first, I'm like, well, when's the first event? So you've got all your logins, you go on and go, all right, there's the account coming up. And then all of a sudden, by magic, I was added to this Facebook group.
Yeah.
And then all these messages with details came through. I'm like, how did all this is weird. But then I think because Hainesy's so involved in it, that it was easy for me because I knew him and I knew Rich and Josh and whoever else was down there.
And that's kind of why people find it a bit daunting because it's they think it's a who you know type thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I sat there and I put myself in the shoes of someone who wouldn't know anyone and got this random communication and then found themselves at this property. And there was a guy there that was like brand new when I first went. And you would feel like you joined a cult, I think, because there's all these guys that just rock up in the bush from every direction,
guns over their shoulders in camo,
and they all know each other. So I mean, but it's like joining anything, I guess. When you're the new guy and everyone else knows each other and there's that banter already, but once you're there, look, everyone made you heaps welcome, and
that's great.
Like there was communal meals, a few beers,
and
then get down to business the next day.
That sorts everything out. A few beers and a good feed. Everyone tends to loosen up a bit.
Yeah. I mean, even if you take out, the opportunity to hunt, it's good just to have a bunch of like-minded blokes who you can shoot the shit with.
Exactly.
And it's great. That's part of the reason I love hunting is just being able to get away from the rat race and like do that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And the podcast has led you there, and the dinners that you guys organise, bi-monthly or once a month,
100%.
depending whatever.
We'll say organise in inverted commas.
It's just more, this is where we're going tomorrow night.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you're there, you're there.
Whoever's free, rock up. But, that's part of the reason we started was, to have that community of hunters and outdoorsy sort of blokes who want to get together and have a forum to be able to talk.
Yeah, because all the interstate listeners and overseas listeners, the South Australian hunting community was kind of very close-knit and kept everything to themselves and didn't really communicate to new people. And this last 2.5 years, people were opening up and they're helping people get into it. And people like the Centre Mate podcast, they're opening it up for more guys.
Yeah.
Hainesy's helping a lot of newbies get out there, and
100%. He does a lot. He puts a lot of time and effort into new people, especially, and has a wealth of knowledge. So
ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's kind of exactly like you've said. It's what we want to do as well. Is just any sort of stigma that people might have about who hunters are. Like, we're not just a bunch of rednecks who like killing stuff. There's a lot more to it, especially when it comes down to processing the meat and then sharing that with other people and getting together.
Food conservation,
that's the other thing.
And friendship,
and it's such a good thing to bond over as well.
I don't think I've ever met a depressed hunter or fisherman. Like, it's if they're getting out enough.
Honestly, like when life does get you down a bit and you do start feeling a bit depressed and crappy, like when you get out in the field to hunt,
exactly,
like that's your escape, that's your outlet, and it's quite therapeutic. We've talked about it ad nauseum on our podcast about how more people should find that, especially in this day and age where guys are just.
I'm not a religious person. You grew up in a religious household.
I did.
To me, hunting, fishing, and being outdoors, camping, full driving, whatever it is, feels like a religious experience to me. It feels like my church. When I'm out there, I'm one with my. I'm not a creator believer or anything like that, but that you feel at one with nature. You feel like you're in a holy place.
I would agree with you 100% there, because when I'm out there, I feel like this is about as close to me doing what I feel like I was designed to do.
Yeah.
I see things through a very creative design sort of a lens, and when you're out there watching, a deer and you see what it does and how everything in nature is designed, and you're out there and you're inserting yourself into that food chain as a hunter, and you're surrounded by the beauty of nature, there's nothing that compares to it.
No, there's not.
It is as close as you can get to.
I definitely wouldn't want to be in a drafty old building with a bunch of uptight people. I'd much rather be out there with some deer and a rifle,
Yeah, and honestly, I wish no one had to work. I wish we just existed in in nature as much as we could and didn't have to worry about money.
We've all had those visions, you know. You know, there's some people in the hunting community like, fingers crossed things go to shit over COVID or Russia and Ukraine, whatever it is, you know. We kind of just want that reset to get back to nature.
Yeah, man, 100%. And unfortunately, like, greed has ruined so many things in this world. So if things were resource based, where, you know, the hunters went out and hunted and people grew some things, and it wasn't about greed and who had the most of whatever and who could make money out of it, exactly. I think the world would be a better place. But that's a utopian society. I think we're too far gone. Yeah, it's going to need, like 100%. You said, a massive reset.
Great reset. Yeah. You know, whether it's Biden on the button or Trump, not Trump, Putin on the button. Yeah. What's your top 5 beginner items?
Top 5 beginner items. It's been a while since I've been a beginner, so I'm trying to put myself back there again.
Not so much as what you'd get as a beginner, what you would recommend from your experience now for a beginner to get.
I think definitely if you're going to do a lot of Ks, boots.
Yeah. So
invest in a good set of boots. Not necessarily what I'm using. Find what works for you, for your feet, for your body, for the amount of Ks you're going to do.
Whether it's ankle support you're after, and you can get low cut, you can get mid cut, high cut.
Exactly. Some people like stiff boots, some people like heavy boots. My legs are pretty chunky, so I like a light boot because I don't want to carry anything heavier than I already have to.
Those calves.
Exactly. Does it have to be material items? I'd say get yourself a friend, get a mate that you can go out with as well.
That makes a world of...
It does make a world of difference, and it certainly did for me, because having Josh and his old man, straight away there was access to a heap of things I could try.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, for a beginner to be able to shortcut their way to what they want as an end setup and the end game is being able to try things. And you can't, unfortunately, where we live in Australia, go into a gun shop and try things. So having mates who have guns and different calibers that you can try is, as a beginner, one of the best things you can.
Different brands, different calibers, different scopes. The works.
And Josh and his old man have had many rifles over the years. And I was able to try a lot of them. So I had access to calibers, and that's why I eventually landed on a 308. It was because I'd spent a lot of time behind one. It wasn't mine. And you'll quickly find that other people's setups don't necessarily suit you, because they might like a certain eye relief.
Exactly.
There might be lanky people like Ryan, and you get behind it and you're like, why does it take me forever to find a sight picture in this thing?
Josh, you got your head, like your eye socket over the bolt to look down into his scope.
Well, funny you say that, because Ryan is lanky, but his eye relief is less than the rest of us, but it's because he's blind.
Yeah, I was about to say you don't get that built without having other issues.
No, and he's had scope eye several times.
He does seem like the type of person that would have had scope eye more than once.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, before you've bought your first rifle, I'd really recommend trying some things, because you'll save yourself a lot of money. And the beauty about when you do get your own rifle is you can set it up to yourself exactly. So you pick that thing up and you get a sight picture straight away.
Yeah,
that's a great feeling. It feels like it's in tune with you. Beginner items. I think a knife is a good one, where if you put a bit of time into researching, it's such an intimate piece of kit.
So what are you running knife wise?
So I've got nothing amazing. I've got a Gerber. Which cost me about $50, and
that's what I'm running, man. I got the replaceable blade Gerber.
Yeah, so I don't have that. I got a fixed blade, and it's probably about equal blade length to handle length, and it's a sort of a rubberized grip. And I don't know what it is, but it just fits my hand perfectly. It doesn't slip when my hand's covered in blood, and I can skin most things with it. And then, obviously you've got other specialist knives when you're skinning, but for a general purpose knife, I love this. Just love it.
They're good.
So that's a piece of kit that can feel very personal.
Is that a full tang? So the metal goes all the way through the handle.
Yeah, it does.
Down a little rubber handle, couple screws in it. Do you have the gut hook or the?
Don't have the gut hook.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good little knife. I've got the one with the gut hook. Without the gut hook.
Yeah, I think I can tell we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
There's just a gut hook and a non-gut hook version.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to work at BCF.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where I got it from.
I was about to say you probably got it from BCF.
Exactly. I honestly love that thing. And I mean, I've been looking recently at getting one of the replaceable blade ones.
Yeah.
So whether it's the Havalon or the Gerber.
Yeah.
That's another one of those things I sort of research in the background and go, which one's better?
Just seen Anaconda's got a new replaceable blade, Gerber one, with a bigger blade on it. So not the little surgical blade like what I'm running, like the Havalon. And it's a bigger blade. It's a Randy Newberg. So I'm not sure if you know who Randy Newberg is. He's got a hunting podcast. He's got a hunting show, and he actually works with Gerber and gets his name on all the products he works with. So it's a pretty cool looking blade. I'm like,
nice. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Gerber gear.
For the price, it's great. Whether some of the machetes are a bit weak in the blade, but all the knives seem to be. The knife you have, I had a bit of trouble sharpening, but if you spend some time on it.
Yeah, I've got this little, it's just like little sharpener that's perfect for, I actually keep it in my bino harness, and it's probably, I think it's Lansky is the brand.
Yeah.
And just when you're out and you want to quickly sharpen something, it's perfect.
Yeah, I got a couple. I got a little packet, and they're kind of like a file with a bit of sand, like almost like a sandpaper bit on it, plastic handle, and I use them for broadheads when I'm bow hunting and knives. But the replaceable blade knives I just love, because once you start getting that dull bit, just change the knife, put it back. Like they got a little packet they come with. You can put the empty blade in there and get a new blade out in the same bit.
Yep. What did you were after 5 things, weren't you? What have I said?
3.
I guess if you're going to be staying outdoors, you're going to want some sleeping gear.
Yeah.
I've gone cheap for sleeping bags and been freezing all night. The one I've got now, I'm pretty sure it's a Caribou or no, an Oz something or other. I don't know. Put it this way, it was about $100.
Yeah.
And for me, it's fine. It fits me well. It doesn't have fleece on the inside. It's that sort of I don't know what material, but it's shiny on the inside as well. So
like a felt almost.
No, not quite.
No.
It's almost similar to the outside material, so you can slip around in it.
Yeah.
And don't get caught up. I like being able to move in my sleep. I hate sleeping with clothes on, man. Like
same.
So I feel like so constricted. So when I'm in a sleeping bag, I like to be able to roll around and move.
That's a tip I got told in New Zealand. The more you actually wear, the colder you'll be in a sleeping bag, because how it's designed, your body heats up the sleeping bag. So when you've got layers on, you're going to be colder. So the more you strip off, the warmer you'll be.
Yeah, wow. I'll have to give it a go. Next time I'm over in the snow, I'll just get in the buff and try that out.
Maybe not that quiet, but
well, we'll see how we go.
Especially with the amount of pranks you boys play on each other on trips. So.
True. I'll end up waking up to my sleeping bag wide open and with cameras being out. So
with a brown snake.
Yeah, the brown snake
sticking out.
Something like that. I mean, I've got when I just go camping normally, I've got a King's one.
Yeah.
With the zip out, like it's 2 layers.
Yeah. So
you can zip out a layer if you're too hot. And I've got 2 of them, so I zip them both together when me and the missus go away. And that thing's roasting hot.
Yeah, no, I've got a very similar setup, double I've got Wanderer gear rather than King's gear, but it's very similar, probably all out the same factory, but
exactly.
Yeah, it's all very comfortable. So I think that puts you on about 4 for sleeping gear.
Beginner gear. Probably binos, I'd say. If you want to get out and see something and
100%
and get out to distance straight away, so you're not just seeing things right in front of your face, go the binos. And like we discussed before, the Vortex Diamondbacks, they're not going to cost you the world.
Yeah.
And I know other people have said that on this podcast, but honestly, for an affordable setup, which is quality, it's going to last you, I'd go the Vortex Diamondbacks, and I go 10 power.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah, look, well, I've got a couple messages over Instagram, saying, you help me decide on what to actually get. I've been looking at stuff. So that's why I have these type of questions in the
100%.
just to
And
help
we get the
people.
same on our podcast as well, and people get in the chat and go, oh, what do you guys reckon about this? And we go, oh, well, here's this, and this, a few recommendations, and 2 minutes later, sending through the receipt. You guys are terrible. I've just bought this. I'm like, oh, I didn't say you had to, man. But, what's better than first-hand experience, I guess? If you try something and can pass on a review that way, I think it's much better than just reading something from a stranger.
Yeah. So what would your go-to zombie apocalypse weapon be?
Does it have to be readily available?
I'd say so. In Australia.
Say it broke out tomorrow. I've had this because I love The Walking Dead.
Yep.
I did until the last couple of seasons.
Fear of the Walking Dead, Shaun of the Dead, all the zombie movies and shows.
Yeah, I mean, I've switched over the years. I've originally I thought, I just like to sort of snipe things from a distance.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you're going to get some up close and personal. So maybe a shotgun, like something like, you can't really get an auto shotgun here.
I think Josh's answer was an Adler. Like he would lever action Adler just.
Yeah, I mean, as automated shotgun as you can get in Australia,
either straight pull or lever.
And with as many rounds as you can fit. So
that's the thing. Shotgun shells are pretty bulky to carry around.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons, isn't there? I mean, do you go a blade? Do you go an axe? I'm trying to think because I used to play like zombie games as well, and I'm trying to think what I'd roll around with. Like there's the Walking Dead style baseball bat with the barbed wire and things sticking out of it, but
blunt force.
maybe an axe or something like that. Just I don't know. Depends on what mood you're in, I guess. Do you want to get up and personal, get covered in a bit of blood, or
depends what zombies you have too. If it's Walking Dead zombies, it's a breeze for most hunters and maybe fishers. But if it's 28 days later zombies, or World War Z zombies,
you're not slow. I think for zombies, you want more than one weapon. You want a loadout, so you probably want a long range. You want your up close and personal.
Exactly, like Walking Dead. They got their handguns, their screwdrivers, they got their knives, they got
something that gets me though about The Walking Dead is Daryl and his
the
crossbow. Like, come on, man, he's not.
Look,
I know I'm in a bow hunting household here. But I just you've got a finite amount of ammunition and you're not going to go fetch every bolt that you send out.
But that's not what gets me in it. A crossbow could work really well, but it's the bolts not passing through the rotting zombie skulls.
They just stick in there.
They just stick in a couple of inches. That's not going to happen.
No, it's not. So, yeah, that's a fair point, actually.
What have you forgotten on the hunt, man?
What have I forgotten? I'm generally not the guy who forgets. Listeners of our podcast will know I'm quite often called Camp Mum. Yep. Because I'm the organised one.
I reckon that should be the name of the podcast. I reckon Camp Mum from Sender Mate.
So generally I don't forget things. I'm trying to think.
Plus with that big whiteboard that you guys run when you're getting ready for a...
Yeah, it's pretty hard. And honestly, that's just the way I am, is that I will get everything out, look at it all. Hopefully that triggers my memory of something that I've forgotten, pack it all away, and then go through it again. So generally I don't forget something. There's certainly never been anything stupid like ammo or my rifle or whatever. Maybe it'd be more like something luxurious, like a pillow. No, I'd say a pillow is probably... Yeah. On times where we've had a base camp and I've forgotten a pillow, that's annoyed me.
Yeah.
And as precious as that sounds.
Stuffing a jumper with all the rest of your clothes
exactly. And I've got a little tip actually. So if you get your dry sack and put clothes in it and then pump keep a bit of air in it, and then actually close it up with some air in it. It makes a pretty comfy pillow.
Nice. I got a Black Wolf inflatable pillow for backpack stuff.
Very good.
That's pretty good. About halfway blown up, and it's quite comfy. But I still wrap it in a jumper just to give it that extra bit of I'm a double pillow sleeper, so I'm not sure what you like.
Yeah, my pillow's fairly high. Otherwise, I get a real sore neck. So.
Yeah, I have like a stiff pillow, a soft pillow, arm under the pillow.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that as well. So something I've actually done is in my single swag is I leave an inflatable one in there all the time. So if I do forget, then at least I've got something.
That's good.
So you just blow it up 2 seconds later as a pillow.
Yeah, I got a little just a go box, and it's pretty much got all my hunting gear in it that I'll need. So if a trip turns into a backpack trip, I can chuck in my bivvy, I can chuck in my inflatable pillow, my mattress, all of that. So
perfect. I think that's probably the worst thing I've forgotten that's annoyed me. Generally, I'm pretty good.
That's probably the least interesting one out of it. You know?
I'm sorry, but I got to be truthful. I mean, I can hang shit on some people. Like Couchy, if you're listening, he used to be the worst, the absolute worst. Like he'd forget a chair, and it got to the point where I'd bring a double chair, so he'd have something.
So you two could snuggle,
we'd snuggle together, and he'd forget clothes. He'd forget everything basically. Yeah. So you'd be scabbing your shit all the time.
I've forgot arrows. I've forgotten boots.
And now I've mentioned this before, but he now has all the biggest, most clunky stuff to bring, and I think that's so he doesn't forget it. But it's just really inconvenient. So the big double swag, the big fold out reclining chair, it's a behemoth, but he brings it.
Hey, at least he can't forget it. It's that big, he can't walk over it.
Exactly. He trips over it as he's coming out of his house.
So what is your funniest hunting, fishing story?
Oh, funniest. Funniest's hard because I guess you always have fun on a hunt. It doesn't matter if you get something or you don't. But I guess one of my favourites and also one of the funniest was one I did with Josh to the Vig High Country, where it wasn't so much going to be a hunt, more an expedition, and neither of us had been to the high country before, so we didn't really know what we were in for. We didn't know before we went that there was road closures because it's dangerous and they don't want a heap of people driving around in the snow. And look, so I used to have company cars as a sales rep and a business development manager in my previous life. And I used to abuse the fact that you had free fuel. So I would go to Vic and take that. So I've had multiple. That twigs my memory actually to another hunting funny one. So I've got two, but the main one in the high country is Josh and I decided to go to the high country and check it out. We'd never been. We wanted to do a bit of reconnaissance, find some potential spots. We had no idea. So we took I think I had a Subaru Outback at the time, and I had no idea about what four-wheel drive capability it had. It was all drive. So I did the old Google, can it do creek crossings? Can it do this, that, and the other? And we sort of worked out a few places, and something him and I do a lot is if we're going to an area, jump on Google Earth, suss out where we think might be good. So those places we got as close as we could, and then realised there was these logging tracks that were closed. So then we had to go literally from the high country back down to town, then back up the other side. And by this stage, like from Adelaide, it takes you a good 14 hours to get to the base of the high country.
High country, it is. Like bright area.
Yeah, bright, yeah. And so by this stage, I think we left at night, and by early morning we were about bright. So we pulled over and we'd slept in the car, and then we'd done this, couldn't get to the first spot, back down again, back up the other side. And we're like, why are these roads closed and we can't get to any of these Google Earth places we've sussed out? And then we came down to this creek, and I've gone, let's give it a go. Like by this stage, we're in the car with each other for nearly 24 hours straight.
Josh would be a struggle to be in a car with the amount of fidgeting and stretching and
I can't remember if he was smoking or not at that point, but I don't remember too many stops for a Durry break. So, like, honestly, yeah, it's a long time to be in a car with one other human.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I've been there, man.
And we have very different tastes in music as well. So podcast is where we had to settle. And then we were so we did this, anyway, we did this creek crossing and we had no idea if we were going to get stuck or not.
Just send it, some might
Just
say.
send it. And you know what? This Subaru Outback crossed the creek and the water was above the door seals and then the other side was just mud. And it just somehow just climbed
You get
straight
that
out
bit
of it.
where it like aquaplanes, the diff drops, hits the gravel, and then just like catches and sends you out.
Yeah,
I did the same thing in my Falcon and in some good floods.
I've seen some pretty good clips online on 4 driving pages of AU Falcons just doing some crazy shit.
Yeah, I had a BF.
So anyway, like that was just insane to be in the car with someone for 24 hours. It was funny in that some podcasts we got onto, that's where we discovered My Dad Wrote a Porno.
Yeah, you've spoken about
It's a
that.
very good podcast, but it's, for those who haven't listened to it, it's a podcast where 3 friends get together and one of their dads has written an erotic series of novels, but the main character is in sales in pots and pans. So it's not really sexy subjects. Like it's around like sales sort of environment. And Josh was getting genuinely excited in the car listening to this. And like the premise of the podcast is they make fun of it because it's terribly written.
He seems like a Days of Our Lives Neighbours type of guy. So
The actual novels themselves, they're taking the piss.
I meant Josh.
Oh, but no, yeah, Josh was getting excited, like a bit turned on by this stuff, and I felt awkward because there's 2 blokes in the car, and he's like
Start skiing.
just about cracking a fat listening to this podcast. It was weird. Anyway, so 24 hours in a car together, not great, but then we eventually found a base camp, a great spot. We ended up getting a Samba that trip just out of the blue. We had no idea what we were doing, but
I think Josh briefly spoke on that on his episode.
yeah, like, honestly, it was so much fun, a good laugh, and we know each other that well is the only way we survived. If it was anyone else, we would have killed each other. But another funny one, talking about vehicles. So I've had a series of vehicles when I was a sales rep, and I had a Hyundai i40 at one stage, which is the most underpowered piece of crap I've ever driven. And I had the wagon, and we took that to New South Wales on the banks of the Darling River. And we decided to take this bit of a shortcut just after the wet season on some pretty crazy roads. And I was getting this thing like airborne over cattle grids. I had it out before in another muddy paddock where I was redlining the thing and no traction because it was just road tyres, and like the thing was just flipping all over the place. Front wheel drive. I abused the crap out of it. I hit a wombat.
And this is why you don't buy fleet vehicles.
Correct. Hammered it. So one of the ones I took possession of, there's a guy who had before me, and I looked at one of the trip. What was that? I think that was the i40. Anyway, I looked at the trip computer one day, and this guy averaged 17.5 litres per 100 Ks for this particular trip he'd done. And I'm like, how do you manage that in this thing that normally does about 8 or 9? Did he have the handbrake on? Like, what was going on? Anyway, so on that trip on the Darling, I took it for the free fuel, and we rocked up to this farmer's property, and he's come out and he's gone, like, because there's a Navara and there's a Hilux there, and then I'm there in the I-40. He's come out, he's gone, how have you bloody got here? Is it a rally car? Like, how have you actually managed? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just got here. And this guy was absolutely flabbergasted at the fact that I'd even be able to get onto his property through mud, cattle grids, you name it. But I did. But it's just, if you're not scared to abuse something, you can get a lot of places.
And my BF Falcon, she had a few deer in the boot, a few goats in the boot, antlers.
I had a wombat in that thing accidentally once. It ran out in front of me. It's terrible.
Aren't they a bastard to hit?
It was like hitting a rock.
Yeah.
And I'd slowed down because I saw a few of them on the road, and I slowed right down. And I reckon I was only doing 20 or 30 k's an hour. And I'm like, this thing's just trotted out. I'm like, nah, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? So I've pulled up to a stop, and there's just one doof. And yeah, I might as well hit a brick wall.
Nah, they're solid, man.
You just shook it off, trotted off again.
Yeah. You can't kill stupid.
True.
No matter how many times you try and kill Ryan. But
no, he does a good job of doing that himself. I don't even have to try.
What's the most sketchy or dangerous thing to happen on a hunting trip?
I mean, again, I'm camp mum.
Yes.
So I try and actively prevent most of the sketchy things.
You're camp mum, but look at who you decide to go away with,
That's true.
Couchy, Josh, Ryan.
That is very true.
Hayden.
And look, it's not... I do some loose shit, and I have done some loose shit over my time. But I don't know what's changed where I'm now the sensible one.
Kids.
Maybe that's what it is. The fact that I... have a family that I need to get home to. And
yeah.
maybe that's what's changed. We try not to put ourselves in too many sketchy situations, but I guess there's been times. There was once with Josh, we were over the border in Vic, just on Crown Land.
Yeah.
And we got bogged,
in the pines there, yeah.
To the axle, and we did not know where the nearest anything was. And we're generally pretty calculated.
It was a pretty slippery hill from memory from that story.
It was look, there was
a gentle hill.
Not even, it was sort of just a gentle that particular place we got bogged was a gentle dip and then rise over the other side. We should have paid attention to the reeds.
Yep. Is this where the forestry workers came in?
They pulled us out.
Yeah.
Yep. That's probably the sketches. The only time I've ever felt like shit. Are we going to get out? Are we going to have to walk to a town?
Yeah.
There is no mobile reception. But honestly, we just stayed calm.
Yeah.
Made a contingency plan of where to meet up if things went to crap. I left him.
That's a good thing about Josh is he's been trained for those situations.
Worst case scenarios, and he's been in them and survived them.
If it was you and Ryan, it could be, you'd probably still be out there now.
Yeah, probably. It's a whole different kettle of fish. But look, we got out. That was the main thing. But that's probably the only time I was sort of going, shit, this could turn pretty bad.
What's the most important thing you take out?
Depends, I guess, where we're going. But, I mean, the obvious one is your rifle.
Yeah.
That's, I've not really been... I guess I've had the opportunity to go bow hunting, but I'm still firmly entrenched in rifle hunting, and I guess exploring that as far as I can and getting as proficient as I can in that. I'm not someone who likes to do a heap of things.
As I told Josh, just man up and fucking do it. Get him.
I do remember you saying that to him. But honestly, it comes down to time as well.
Yeah, I know, man.
It's so hard to just have the time to get out, especially when you have kids. And
you got twins, man.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as Josh doesn't like to admit it, but just listening to you guys talking about, how easy it is to have kids and just go out and do it, and chuck your wife and kids in a caravan and travel Australia. It doesn't matter. Just make them do it.
Yeah,
I'm listening to it. I'm like, man, me, you, and Ryan just need to drop our kids off at Josh's house for a weekend.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Drop him off with 5 kids and just see how he lasts for a week.
Mate, he'll go spare. He talks a big game. And look, he's got a heart of gold and he means the best, but
he's a good
far
dude.
out. He talks a big game.
Yeah, just listening to some of the kid shit, when he's talking about kids and families, I'm like, dude, you have so much to learn.
He does. He's probably, from his time in the army, he's prepared for a lot of things, like the sleep deprivation, and I don't think he sleeps that well still, but the sleep debt.
He likes to talk like he's Major Payne, but I don't think he could control a bunch of kids like Major Payne.
Nah. I think that'll be the hardest thing is being able to entertain kids when they are just ratty and they just don't want to bar of anything.
Yeah. Oh, look, man, I got a 7-year-old and a almost 2-year-old. You got what? 2 7-year-olds or 2 6-year-olds?
2 6-year-olds.
Yeah. So, as a kid, I just wanted to get into it. Like, I'd go out camping and I could just entertain myself all day. And it's completely different now, being like, I want to go out and do these things. And you got iPads, you got phones, you got games, and kids just don't entertain themselves like we had to.
No.
My grandparents could give me a tomahawk or a machete and a slingshot and a bag of marbles, and I'd be gone from sunrise to sunset.
I mean, my dad tells a story of he got given a cardboard box and a bag of oranges.
Yeah.
You got to make a game out of that somehow. And honestly, Josh and I grew up having to invent a lot of games to keep us entertained as well.
Yeah.
We can do it. The new generation, it's a bit harder with all the...
How do you find getting your girls into it? Because I know you've taken them target shooting a couple times.
Yeah, so they've been target shooting. They know what it's about. I think when it comes to hunting, for them, they love animals so much, like froth animals. And the thought of killing for them, they could probably process something that's scary.
Yeah.
But when it comes to shooting Bambi, Dad, do you shoot the mummy ones? Like, you only shoot the daddy ones, don't you? Like,
yeah, it would be different with girls. My oldest, he goes to a Christian school.
Yeah.
So it's like, he started, and then it's like, how can you kill God's creatures? And then I've got the 2-year-old, we've got him saying deer meat. So as soon as Ryan comes into the door today, the 2-year-old runs up and he's like, deer meat, because we got the slow cooker for tomorrow, and he's running up going, deer meat. Like,
I saw that, yeah. Look, I mean, there is a retort to the whole Christian school, like, how can you kill an animal thing? Yeah. We can say, well, God created them and he's given you dominion over them, and they're for food.
That's exactly what I said. I'm like, you eat cows, you eat sheep, I can shoot a deer.
Exactly.
And the same sentence, he'd be like treading on an ant, like he's like killing an ant or a spider. It's like, dude.
So yeah, look, girls is a whole other thing. I think they'll get around to it eventually.
Yeah,
definitely they're fine with target shooting, so I'll keep them involved in that as long as I can. And look, when they're ready is when I'll take them out hunting, I guess. It's not for everyone, and I'm not going to force it on them. But if they're keen, I'll take them along anytime they want to come.
Like my 2-year-old, if he came in here, he'd be like, run straight to the gun safe, and he'd be like, guns. He'd point to bows.
That's the luck of the draw, though, man. Like, you might have a kid who hates it and just freaks out at a loud noise, let alone killing an animal. So I think I try not to harp on about Josh too much, but he's my best mate. I think he thinks he's going to have this kid that's just going to be programmed to like exactly the things he likes.
It's going to be totally opposite. With the amount of game he talks, it's going to be like, the kid's going to want to do ballet and singing lessons.
Exactly. And he's going to have to go along to that and just
Dad,
suck
can I
up.
wear this tutu?
Yeah, like, Josh, you're going to have to play dress-ups with a kid at some point. So, yeah.
Rather than just in the bedroom, mate.
I hope he's not playing dress up with a kid in the bedroom. That's no.
Yeah, no,
we'll leave that alone. Sorry, man.
All good, mate. I expected it with you guys coming over from Send It, mate.
That's where my mind goes. It's generally in the gutter. So,
top 5 dream animals.
So number 1 for me is elk in northwestern US, so like Colorado, Montana, somewhere like that.
Is that backpack? Is it private, public?
I would prefer public as much as I could, like the Ridgy-Didgy experience as much as you can. I don't want to just rock up and have someone set up an elk for me. Yeah. I want to have the proper hunting experience.
You know what I really love? How some guys use llamas and goats as pack pack animals. So they'll have like a chain of 15 goats as a pack. Like they'll have their whole camp set up. They'll have the big freaking like stoves.
Yeah, it's
and tents
like an African hunting expedition style.
Exactly, but goats, man.
No, I want just the authentic experience with, you know, maybe one or two other guys.
During the elk rut.
Yep.
Calling them in.
Yep, 100%. So for me, that's number one. Number two, I reckon moose, Canada.
Yep.
And that's as much about just going to Canada as it is getting a moose. I think Canada's beautiful.
Big animal, man.
And
dangerous.
Big, dangerous animal. I actually watched a video on Instagram the other day of a moose in Alaska charging a bloke, and he's got this little sausage dog next to him, and the sausage dog goes at the moose.
I see one today on TikTok. This guy's walking out to go check his mail, and he's walking down his driveway, and it's him and his little, looked like a Jack Russell sized dog, could have been a Chihuahua or whatever, and he walks out, and this moose just starts charging him in his snow covered driveway, and he's like looks up, and he's like, oh shit, starts running back. This little dog's going at it, and he's like, no, leave the dog.
Yeah. I reckon that's the same one, man. Well, I just saw it on Instagram. It's a long-haired little sausage dog.
Yeah.
And those
you know your sausage dogs.
I do. I have one. They're brave. They'll go anything, any size. So I went away last weekend, the York Peninsula, and I took him. And he doesn't bark too much, but he's fairly protective, and he'll go anything. Doesn't matter what size. He decided to go at a convoy of patrols. And these blokes had to slow down while he's charging directly at him, barking. My missus is running after him. He just no fear.
That's hilarious.
So what else we got? So
that's number two, moose.
Elk, moose, wolf. Obviously, this is probably going to be America as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, wolf.
Beautiful, smart animal. You can't half tell that you and Josh are best mates. I think it's the exact same order as.
I'm not so big on the sheep. I don't know what his deal with sheep is, so I don't have any sheep in my top five.
Spending too many time with New Zealanders, I reckon.
Yeah, there's a link there somewhere. And plenty of inappropriate jokes to be made, but we won't go there. So yeah, elk, moose, wolf, black bear.
Yeah.
And the other one, I'd actually like to get a massive like stomper boar, but European.
Yeah.
So like
big
somewhere
Russian, Eurasian boar.
Yeah, like somewhere around there, like
big
Germany, Russia, like Western
Bulgaria.
Yes,
that's where you want to go.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Ben Salaris, however you pronounce his last name. I'm shocking at pronouncing names, but he goes hunts Bulgaria quite a bit. Mouflon and Russian boars.
Yeah, I reckon
fallow in Bulgaria. That's
just to be different, I guess. And there's some massive animals.
Yeah.
So,
but it's crazy that they're all one species. They're not like subspecies. They're all Sioux scruffer.
Yeah.
Like your Eurasian boars, your domestic, your Australian wild pigs, your American wild pigs. They're all just that one species of pig, Sioux scruffer.
Yep.
Like it's
for
mental.
sure. I kind of just want that experience where this thing could rip you apart.
Yeah.
And you got to get it before it gets you, sort of thing.
The drives they do for those Eurasian boars. And then the videos of like people in Russia and shit, like putting out the garbage, getting chased by this 120 kilo pig.
Yeah. Or guys like shotgunning this thing, charging them, and it drops like a meter in front of them. You're like, wow, you got some balls.
Or the ones that are unlucky and they don't drop.
Yeah, they don't want to be that guy for sure. But I reckon, that's my top five.
Yeah, no, that's a really good top five. How do you see the public views on hunters?
It's still a real mixed bag, but I think it is changing for the better, and I think it's definitely come down to people like yourself, like us on Send It Mate, just being real and putting ourselves out there and having conversations with people and if you want to change people's perception as hunters, you have to kind of show yourself in the best light and not come across like a redneck just killing machine.
The old school mentality.
the real old school.
But even just keeping quiet, you have to put yourself out there and have these discussions.
So I definitely don't think you should ever shove something down someone's throat in terms of what you do hunting.
Yeah.
If they're not, so pick your audience sort of thing, and show people what you do.
So up until recently, you wouldn't even wear camo in public. Like you felt bad going into a service station wearing camo.
True, you listen to the podcast.
I listen to every episode religiously, man. So
yeah, well, whereas now this Hunter's Element camo hat I have on, I wear literally everywhere. I wear it when I'm doing Auskick with my kids. I wear it to the shops. Like, it's on my head.
it's a good conversation starter. I do the same with my Huntec cap or my normal camo cap. People are like, oh, why are you wearing camo? Like,
Yeah, it's funny actually. I went through Macca's for a coffee the other day and had this on, and the one closest to me, there's a worker there. He's got a good sense of humour, and I've rocked up to the window and he's gone, "Oh, dude, where's your head?"
yeah, dude, I get that at work routinely.
What do you
Like
mean?
half your head's missing, and because you don't pay attention to camo jokes, like because you just wear camo, it doesn't click like it does for people who are seeing you wear camo.
Yeah.
Like I'll go to work and people are like, oh, half your head's missing. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, what are you on? And they're like, oh, you're wearing camo. I'm like, so that's everyday wear for me.
But I mean, a hat is something fairly discreet, but like anyone who knows what they're looking at and realize it's not just like a name brand and it's actually a hunting brand, they'll quite often start a conversation. And I've had plenty of conversations with guys like in the, the auto shop or the servo or wherever.
If I see someone with camo on, and especially if it's a name brand camo, whether it's Hunter's Element, Spiker, Huntec, I'll go up to them and approach them like,
Yeah.
So what type of hunting do you do? Like, I'll rock up to site. I deliver plasterboard. I'll rock up to site and someone will have a hunting sticker on the back of their car. I'll be like, so what do you chase? What do you hunt?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like...
or I'll go around the site and I'll be like, whose car's the Hilux with the Spiker sticker on it? I want to chat to them for half an hour,
Yeah, it's like a discreet way of advertising yourself to those who are in the know.
Yeah. I was in town, Woolshed,
Yeah.
about 5 years ago, and there's this dude in the orange Huntec gear,
Oh, yeah.
just on the dance floor
The
dancing.
bullshit.
I've gone, he's wearing camo. He's wearing Huntec. I'm like, I'm Zach. How you going? Why are you wearing camo? Do you hunt? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm from New Zealand,
Oh, wow.
And we
had
chatted for like 2 hours,
Wow. I mean, you wouldn't expect that. Like, we're talking late at night at the bullshit.
Oh, 3 a.m.
What? So obviously had nothing else to wear. Because I don't know if it should be your first choice. But anyway, well, it was a conversation starter. That's good. But so that's I guess talking to other people in your community. I guess I've spent a lot of time talking to people who aren't hunters at all, especially when I used to work with other people more than I do now. And people go, oh, and I worked in a very professional environment where people had no idea I was until I talked about it.
Yeah.
And that was good from the fact that they could see that I was just a normal guy with a family, with, loves his footy, loves his music.
Conversation. What'd you get up to on the weekend? Well, actually, I went hunting.
Oh, yeah, even with your boss, like, oh, where are you going on leave? Oh, I'm actually going over to Vic for a hunting trip. Oh, okay. And like,
Hunting what? And then you get into the details. You're like, well, we have 6 species of deer here. We have deer in Australia.
Yeah.
Like, it's
that's a big one with people. They don't realise. But I think another way of being able to change people's perception is giving away meat.
Yeah.
So that's something we're big on. Is anything we shoot will, unless it's culling something like a rabbit or a roo or whatever. But generally we take meat from anything else we'll kill. And then, processing, making snags, making different cuts of meat, and then giving that to other people. And I've given that to others at work, and they've gone, oh, wow, thanks.
I would have been at my current job less than a year, and we went out spotlighting for a farmer and shot a bunch of deer, and I've rocked up at work with half a deer and an esky, started cutting it up on the bench and cooked it up for everyone, cooked heart, all the office ladies are having slices of a heart and tenderloin and backstrap and cooked it up for everyone, and these are people that have never had venison, they've never had anything to do with hunting or fishing or
Yep, I've had a lot of the same experiences, and it's a way of showing people that you're serious about what you do, and it's not just senseless killing. It's for a purpose. It's for conservation, it's a way of starting those conversations. You can change a lot of people's perceptions. From on the broader side of things, look, there's a lot of good work out there, but I guess until the mainstream media narrative changes and they decide that hunting's a good thing.
What's your thoughts on hunting photos and stuff on Facebook? Because it does put it into people's views who don't want to see it, who don't normally see it.
I think as hunters you should definitely own what you do and be proud of it, and you should be able to put what you're passionate up on social media as much as someone who's, I don't know, knitted a scarf has put up on Facebook, and that's what they're proud of doing. I think you should be allowed to, especially in this day and age of individualism and expression. Like, why is hunting anything less important as a personal expression?
Demonized compared to the rest of the...
Exactly. It's just because mainstream media has decided that there's a stigma there and, hunting's bad. So from that perspective, I don't think anyone should be ashamed of what they do. I think you can exercise a level of discretion in terms of how gory it is. So maybe don't put, a gut shot with, the guts spilling out everywhere.
Exactly.
Not that you should be proud of a gut shot generally anyway, but...
Arrows sticking out of animals.
Just think about your audience, I guess.
Yeah.
When you put something up, so you're not putting something out there that's not very tasteful. I think you can be tasteful, like be proud, but be tasteful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand, man. Like when I first started getting really into hunting through my mid to late teens, posting photos of bowshot goats and deer and like all these people that I went to school with, like, how could you do that? That's an innocent animal, rah, rah, rah. And it felt like the main start of my hunting quote-unquote career was defending myself about being a hunter. Like close family, uncles, aunties, my mum, like, she'd be commenting on there like, look, I love you, but why are you posting pictures of dead animals? People don't want to see that. And, you go on 10 years later and I'm still doing the exact same thing, Had the global hate cat campaign, and like, it's...
I think, something we've been lucky with at Sender Mate is our audience generally are on the same page with us. So in terms of hate and people having a go, I reckon we've had one single comment in the, 18 months we've been going that was negative, and some dude having a genuine rip at us for something. So we haven't had to deal with that negativity, but it's because if we post an image of one of us getting a deer, it's generally going to be to the community that love what we do anyway.
Exactly. So plus the algorithms have changed a bit, so you're not really getting random photos through the feed. Where when I first started posting to Instagram, it was just everyone was getting everything. Like I know you're more into your alternative heavy metal style music. There's a rapper called Briggs.
Yeah, I know Briggs.
A few years back, he posted a status about a hunting advertisement coming up in his Instagram feed, and it was a guy in Queensland that shot a rooster deer.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, this is fucking disgusting, rah, rah, rah. And I've commented on there, I'm like, mate, I'm a big fan to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
You're having a go at someone for hunting when your whole culture, because he is an Aboriginal rapper.
Yep.
I'm like, you defend your culture, but your whole culture is built on hunting. Yet you're having a go at someone for hunting introduced species in your country where your whole culture is based on hunting. And his response was, "Go get fucked, rah rah rah."
See, that's.
But I'm like, dude, like, I'm still a big fan. I like your music. It's not the way to approach it, but come on, like, it's your whole culture. What you preach is based on hunting.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit strange, isn't it? Yeah, wow. That's a bit staggering, to be honest.
But I see people attacking hunting, and that's just me. Like, I see someone complaining about hunting, and I'm like, I have to get in. Like, I have to comment on this. Like, hunting is my lifestyle, as it probably is yours as well. Where I'm like, I have to defend it. Like, there's all these people complaining. Like, I have to say something. I can't help myself. Like,
oh, look, I look forward to those conversations if and when we become more mainstream, and that's something we're definitely looking to do. Is not just fondle each other's balls in the same community of hunters, but actually get out into the mainstream
chat to people.
and educate people.
Yeah.
In the wider community to help them realise that hunting is about a lot more things than just killing animals.
Exactly. So you kind of touched on this already a little bit. How would you change the public views on hunting and hunters?
I think the best thing, and something we spoke with Nigel from Veteran Hunts on a recent podcast of ours, is being able to show people what you do. And I don't think, and if you want to try and change someone's perception, there's definitely people out there that are just hard and fast, polar opposites, and you're never going to change their mind. Don't waste your breath on those people. Don't sit there and get into debates and just go back and forth with those people. It's not worth your time.
The one thing there is that the one benefit is you're learning their views and their reasonings, so you can use that for future discussions.
That's true. And with anything, be educated on the other side about why they'd put yourself in their shoes, try and work out why they're thinking what they're thinking. Don't be one-eyed in your argument.
Exactly.
I guess is the main thing. Try and educate yourself from a more well-rounded perspective. But quite often you'll find that a lot of people out there, they're not too far removed from the way you think. There just might be one or two key sticking points. And if you can work out what those sticking points are and show them concisely why you do what you do and the way you think with valid arguments and valid points,
100%.
then you're much better off.
With the data and
No, not the data and the statistics. Don't go full Ryan on them. Never go full Ryan. Never go full Ryan. Like Tropic Thunder, we'll change the wording. Don't go full Ryan. Just don't. I've seen a lot of people turned off if you go full Ryan.
Yeah.
just be friendly, but not. Yeah, don't try and berate people into coming around to your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately that's the world we live in now. Is people think if someone doesn't think exactly the same thing you think, they're your mortal enemy.
And you have to cancel them.
But it's just not the case.
Yeah.
Like, we're a rich tapestry of human beings. We all have different opinions. We all have different upbringings and life experiences that bring us to think the way we think.
Even as hunters, like, you three are the prime, like, Centermate podcast is the best example of how three people that love the same thing think completely different about individual subjects in the whole lot, whether it's semi-automatics.
Look, we're bonded over the same thing, but we think very differently.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of it. That's what creates discussion.
And that's what I like Centermate podcast is, just because it's three people who love the same thing but have three totally different views on
we're all
each.
mates. We all argue. We don't blow smoke up each other's ass. We're not that aligned that we just, we have arguments on the podcast. But that's like any group of friends. You're not going to just completely agree with people you're friends with.
Exactly.
And you're not going to ever change someone's mind in an instant. It's going to be a gradual thing where you just sow that seed in their mind, and then they go away and they think about it, and then they come back to you and you have another discussion.
And that's what I love about podcasts. Like, a bunch of the podcasts I listen to, they'll say something, I'm like, I'm not sure if I agree with that, and I'll stew on it for days or weeks, and I'll be like, you know what, maybe I do agree with it. It's...
And I mean, firstly, with a podcast, it's the beauty of having a longer format, is that you can unpack things rather than a short little snippet. But then, in real life, you don't convince someone overnight. It might be a work colleague. They hate hunting and you love it. You can break them down over time.
Had all of this.
Over time. It's not going to be overnight.
Complaints to HR. This guy talks about hunting way too much.
Yeah. Well, you're always going to have people like that in anything in life. So, yeah, don't pick your battles, but then also you'll probably find a lot of people who you think are completely opposite to you. There's only a couple of key sticking points. So that's my advice, I guess, to anyone out there in terms of changing the perception is just educate yourself for those conversations.
Exactly. What is hunting to you?
For me, primarily, it's an outlet. And for a lot of years, it was the only thing. I mean, I've got a lot of interest in life outside of work, which is what everyone should have. Otherwise, work will get you down. So, I mean, I love my footy. I love the cricket. I love going to see live bands. I love music. But then it's like hunting was just that next level of outlet that I truly felt like that religious experience you spoke about. I felt like this is what I'm meant to be doing. Yeah. So when I get away from the rat race, from work, go hunting, it recharges me. And whether that's by myself, sometimes you need that. But then with mates who are aligned in the same passion, there's just nothing better. So
exactly.
First and foremost, I guess it's an outlet for me in being able to deal with life and recuperate and recharge.
Yeah.
And it's just an added bonus that it's, a way of getting meat for yourself.
Exercise.
Well, I mean, shooting's a perishable skill as well.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been out for a few months, you're rusty.
Yeah.
So I think the skill side of things is something I love as well because I like to be able to apply myself to something and get better at it through practice. And shooting's definitely one of those things that is the case.
Exactly. How would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? Hopefully as someone who...
like whether it's to randoms or just to your girls,
I mean, to my immediate family, I'd like to be remembered as a great dad, a good father. And I mean, one of the hardest, from that perspective, as a father, one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make was leaving their mum because I'm divorced and I have a new partner now. But I hated who I was when I was with their mum. And only reason I didn't leave for the longest time was because I was worried about leaving a broken home and what it would be like for them. And so it was the hardest decision, but the best decision because like I said, I didn't like who I was. I was cranky all the time because of the relationship, and you take that out on people and you're not the best dad you could be. So I looked ahead and I thought, can I stay with their mum for, the next 16 years till they're 18 and be a great dad and be happy at home and give them the best upbringing possible, or is it actually better to leave? And that, for me, it was actually better to leave, and I'm much happier in my own self.
Yeah.
I have a great relationship now with my current partner, and I think I'm actually quite proud of myself to be able to create a loving environment. And luckily enough, my ex-wife and I have been able to take ourselves out of it, put our kids first.
That's a great thing. Like I'm a stepdad myself, my 7-year-old. I'm a stepdad to him. I'm also a product of a divorced relationship. So like without my parents splitting up when I was quite young, I doubt I'd be who I am today without it, It's
yeah. I mean, I was a grumpy bastard in those like as joyous as it is having kids, and I split with their mum when they were 2. Yeah. It was heading down a path of me being not a very nice person, I guess. And like I don't have them all the time, so from that perspective it's hard because you miss your kids when you don't see them. But the time I do have with them, I make the most of, and we have great times together, and I'm much happier in life.
Oh, that's good.
And the way I see it now is they probably just have more people in their life that love them and look after them.
100%.
And that I have a new partner, their mum has a new partner.
Yeah.
And they just get,
It's
they
good
get more Christmas presents now.
It's honestly good when you can, like, it's taken my parents a very long time to, like, the first time I've had my parents and that together in the same place was when I got married last year. That's the first time they've been together in 27 years. They've been in the same place for longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah, wow.
Like, it's a big thing.
That's next
and
level.
then with my wife, her ex, my stepdad, my stepson's dad, we can be in the same place and, do things for the good of him, and get along. And
yeah, and that
that
just comes down to putting your kids first, I guess, in being able to be in the same room and just not be selfish, I guess.
Exactly.
So, yep, being a great dad, probably I didn't do so well the first time around being a husband, so I'd like to redo that again and be a much better one. So
these things take work, man.
These
things take work.
But you know what? You learn a lot of lessons, and that's the key is
you do
learning and improving.
So let's move to a little bit of a happier note. What's the most random fact you know, man?
Oh, Josh has a small penis.
But in consideration to the rest of the size of him, it's in proportion.
Oh, it is. Like the term,
especially the Dorito shape.
Nah, I love you, bro. And look, as best mates, unfortunately, no, I'm not even going to go there. This just sounds too weird. Off penises, it's fine. It's normal. I'm sure it's functioning well. I don't know, man. I just felt like putting him down while I could. Probably because he says it's massive every time he's on our podcast.
I'm feeling a bit like Josh in this singlet and, nipple hanging out here.
The most random fact I know. Yeah, wow. Probably should have researched this one. I don't know what's...
Come on, you're full of useless shit. You bring it out on your podcast all the time.
I need a inspiration. I couldn't tell you what my most...
Josh had to research this one. We took 20 minutes to start the podcast because he's like, is it actually true?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Most random fact I know. I couldn't tell you, man. I could not tell you a random fact.
That's why I've moved it from the middle of the podcast to the end, because you can kind of just section it out if you need to. Really, I should have prepared you, but...
No, that's fine. How about I think about it in the back of my mind as we move to the next question, and then I'll...
Well, the next question's wrapping it up, man.
Ooh.
Where can we find you on social media and where can we listen to you?
Well, Sender Mate Podcast is the name of the podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Sender Mate Podcast. You can find us on Facebook as well. And you can send us emails, sendermatepodcast@gmail.com. And you can listen to us on basically anywhere, any platform you get your podcast on.
And if they want to just get in contact with you because they've liked what they've heard, and
yeah, by all means, Instagram's probably the best way. We're all three of us are on there.
It's a bit of a gamble at who you get, and they don't sign off at who you're chatting to, so you kind of have to listen to the podcast and then read and work out who you're chatting to.
I mean, we have suggested that people play this game of trying to guess who is responding. So if there's
I'm usually all right, but I reckon once I confuse you and Ryan. Josh is pretty easy to get, spelling errors.
Yeah,
and all of that.
So if Josh is dyslexic, so if the spelling and grammar is terrible, then it's probably Josh. He's getting better over time though, so I've got to give him that. He's improved a lot. Yeah, Ryan will just be random as anything.
I remember one day I was sitting talking to you about an episode, and it was like one message was you, one message was Josh, then Ryan would chip in, then it was back to you, then it was Josh. It's like, hang on.
Look, it's a blessing and a curse that we're all on there, but
I think you were sitting outside a toilet block watching people come in and out.
yeah, that's probably about the time. I remember that, yeah. And in all that, I've been madly trying to think of a random fact, and I still haven't got anything for you, man.
No, that's all good, man.
Terrible. You should have hit me up beforehand.
Yeah.
I would have got one for you.
Thank you for coming on, man. It's much appreciated.
No, that's cool, man. It's a pleasure.
Nah, all good. Thank you all for listening. Please find us on social media. Instagram at Hunting Connection Podcast, at Facebook at Hunting Connection Podcast, Twitter at Hunting Connect. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Rate and review. Thank you.